Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Back to the Bronze Age. I am Count Chocula. The original show was called Count Chocula Decrypted. I was just specifically talking about old comic books and some of the experiences I had as a child getting into these comic books in 1975 and 1976. And I decided to kind of go another route. I decided to specifically talk about just Bronze Age comic books, Marvel comic books in particular. So today I am going to be going through two more issues that I loved as a kid. The prerequisites of this show is for the comic books that I talk about are they have to be published between the early 70s, mid and the mid 80s, and I also had to have read these comic books during that time. So whether I bought them off the spinner rack or I had my mom buy them or bought them from the comic book shops that were opening in the early 1980s. So let's get right into it without further ado here. Today I'm looking at Marvel Team Up number 69 and 70. Havok was a lesser known character at the time. He's still not a mainstream character. He was depicted in, I think it was X-Men First Class. The people that aren't casual comic book readers probably know the character. The casual audience really probably wasn't that familiar with the character. I had known about no intro. What is this guy? Oh, I've got an intro. I just got my new camera hooked up, so I'm giving it a go. I don't have the tripods. I ordered two new tripods, and none of them delivered. Oh, they got the camera to me and the battery and the dummy battery supply, but I have nothing to mount them on. I mount the camera on. I've got it on my GoPro. I've got it on my GoPro tripod. So I'm all screwed up here. Mounted on a cat. Yeah, well. Let's not go into cat. Chubbles broke my best coffee mug. My Xbox heat color changing coffee mug. I was pissed off. So Chubbles is in the doghouse. But anyway, yeah, I got my new camera and I was all excited about getting it all mounted up. And I also got a secondary tripod that you can bend in all sorts of funky ways. In case I ever do like a stream where I'm drawing or something, which nobody nobody in their right mind would want to see me draw, but it's not going very well. But anyway. All right, Spider-Man Havok, Marvel Team Up number 6970. Yeah, I'm all screwed up. I'm on a different monitor. My camera. That camera is nice though. I can't put it where I normally have my camera, and I can't use my monitor. It's pissing me off. So I have the tripod the mini tripod actually sitting on my computer. I haven't watched this Twitch stream in months, maybe since last winter. Yeah, I've only been watching I watched Grammaton Dryad today for a couple minutes playing Ghost, and I've been watching some comic book draw streams like Ethan Van Sciver, and Brett Brock and some other guys. I've been getting into that, and I've been watching like Critical Thinker talk about comic books and stuff. But other than that, I haven't been watching shit. But Marvel, you haven't even been on in months, have you? That's crazy. Yeah, I wasn't gonna do this. Old Havok. Yeah, Havok was actually created by Neil Adams, and in 2010 or whatever year, I'm not used to pointing this way in the mic. 2010, when they had X-Men First Class came out, and they had that kind of generic Fox rendition of Havok, where it was kind of he wasn't even a main character in it. He was like, "Don't I get any royalties?" He was always fighting for character royalties. He was the one that led the charge for Jack Kirby getting his artwork back. They wouldn't even return Jack Kirby's art back to him and shit. So yeah, Neil Adams was like, "Don't I get some side?" Because Neil Adams created this character in the '60s. Some people don't know that. There's another. So let me get right in here. Yeah, we'll zoom in. As you can see at the top, Chris Claremont and John Byrne. What I think is the best, the all-time best collaborator team in the history of comic books. I mean, I'm biased, but I think it is. I mean, this isn't their first time working together, though. They were put on Marvel Team Up for a while. Marvel Team Up was one of the top sellers in the 70s for Marvel. So, I mean, it had Spider-Man in it. So anything with Spider-Man was up on the... But they had Ricardo Villamonte here as the inker. And they always had a different inker almost every issue on Marvel Team Up. The following issues got a different inker. But the plan was... They wanted to get everyone together, and there's a story I'll tell at the end of the second issue, because this was kind of a bittersweet. These two issues are a little bittersweet for me when I was a kid. These came out in April of 1978, either March or April of 1978. These two issues, so it's either that or April, May. I can't remember exactly. But I remember getting these off the spinner rack. But it's Night of the Living God, and they're you can see this is Alex Summers with now I can't remember it. Lorna Dane. I couldn't even remember her name. I know her X-Men name. That's Polaris with the green hair. They're in Scotland, Muir Island in Scotland, and this is all ties into some X-Men stories going on, as you'll see right here. It says it suits Alex Summers and Lorna Dane equally well today. They've been through hell the past year in the X-Men book, and they've come to Muir Island for the time and solitude they need to recover. See X-Men 97 and 109, Archie Goodwin. Archie Goodwin is the editor-in-chief at Marvel Comics at this time. It says, unfortunately, that time has just ran out. Yeah, I decided to try to zoom in a little on this, and then I have to scroll down on the... I get these off of Marvel Unlimited. It's a great deal. I mean, I don't care about the new shit, but I get access to all the old comic books for $9 a month. And here they're just talking about in the background, you can see from the previous page, these three Egyptian-styled characters are back here, kind of silhouetted. Says, me too, I've been working so hard since we arrived, salvaging what little Magneto left intact of Moira's lab. Talking about Moira McTaggart. Moira McTaggart at the time had like an affair going on with Charles Xavier, so they were always going back to Scotland. Better than Netflix. From what I've heard, he darn near creamed the X-Men as we cripes. Chris Claremont used cripes a lot in like... Especially, Chris Claremont is known for like a really wordy writer. Later on, he got a lot more sophisticated with the X-Men. Marvel Team Up stories are never as sophisticated because you have to tell a story quick. You've got like 2 or 3 issues to tell a storyline. You're going to have different characters because they never had the same. It was always a different, like co-star or whatever. So you can see they're blasting right here. Alex, the energy beams came from these rocks, Lorna. There are men up there. Well, fellas, you just made a big mistake. I always loved the way they depicted Havok using his powers. It says, Alex, be careful of your power. What she's referring to is the early character development of Havok was that he couldn't control his power. If people don't know, it's Alex Summers is the younger brother of Scott Summers from the X-Men. And she's like, Alex, be careful your power. This isn't my first time seeing Havok. I mean, I always thought he was a cool design. I first saw Havok when I was a kid, and I wasn't reading the X-Men at this time. I would skim through them at the grocery store off the spinner rack, but I wouldn't buy them. I usually could only get about 5 or 6 comics a month, sometimes not even that much. By 1978, I was getting more and more comic books every month. But the X-Men were never on my list, but I always liked to shuffle through them real quick to try to get an idea of what they were about. They just didn't interest me that much. But I knew Havok from an old issue of a reprinted Hulk issue from the late 60s called Cry Havok. It's a really cool story. The Hulk is out in like kind of the canyons in New Mexico, and these two are, I forget why they were there, Alex Summers and Laura Dane, but they ran into the Hulk, and the Hulk had a mistaken identity, a case of mistaken identity with Lorna Dane because of her green mutated hair. Thought it was Jarella, who was kind of this mutated girl that the Hulk was kind of in love with. So he captures her, and Havok has to fight the Hulk. And he can't really even control his powers, but he has to learn to control his powers on the fly to try to fight the Hulk. And it's a really cool issue. But that was my first time seeing Havok. It was a reprinted issue from the late 60s. I think it was written by Roy Thomas, but they reprinted some of those in like a Treasury edition, like a year prior to me reading this issue. So says, Alex, be careful your power is a lot more under control than it used to be, hun. Don't worry, I won't kill anyone. Yeah, because he couldn't control it. He had to like focus his power to beat the Hulk, to like try to like he kind of got into Hulk's head with his power and turned him back to Bruce Banner. That's kind of a clumsy way to describe it, but that's how he ended up defeating the Hulk. Didn't really defeat him, he just turned him back to Bruce Banner. Says, but I'm sure as heck going to teach a lesson they'll never forget. Who are they, Alex? What do they want from us? I don't know. These days, do costume crazies need a reason to go around killing people? Costumes? Wait a minute. Those headdresses are Egyptian. So from the cover, it's the villain in the story is the living pharaoh. Lorna, I know these guys. They're wearing the same outfits as the living pharaoh's old mom. If I just read it, it would explain itself. Watch your aim, you fool. If the boy is even slightly injured, the master will have our hides. Living pharaoh or living mummy lover? Yeah, Chris Claremont definitely became more sophisticated in his writing when he took over the X-Men. Living pharaoh or living mummy lover, it's all the same to me. So long as they use metal weapons and equipment, they haven't a prayer against Polaris, mistress of magnetism. Not bad. This is, like I said, this is Chris Claremont, John Byrne. John Byrne is made better by there's a handful of inkers that really make John Byrne better. I'm not sure if Ricardo Villamonte is one of them. Guys like Dan Green, Terry Austin, of course, which would go on to be the three guys in the X-Men, the legendary team. They were kind of like the Beatles of the comic book world at the time. But Terry Austin, of course, is like the best inker and that's ever been in comic books, in my opinion. That's just not my opinion. That's kind of the consensus. But Terry Austin didn't ink any of John Byrne's, not that I'm aware of, any of John Byrne's Marvel team-up work, which is kind of a shame. But there is a story about that. I may not be Magneto's daughter, but that doesn't mean I'm a pushover. Mustafa, this is getting out of hand. Be calm, my friend. While our orders are to take the youth unharmed, they say nothing about sparing his girlfriend. So they blast her off of the cliff into the water, threw her into the sea. I'm not sure what sea that would. That'd be the Mediterranean Sea. I'd imagine. Lorna, the blast threw her into the sea. The shock must have stunned her. She didn't use her powers to levitate to safety. I've got to get her fast. The water's almost freezing, as if on her own in that surf, she won't have a chance. Huh? The jet platform shooting some sort of snare. If my voice holds out here. Oh. And in less than time that it takes to tell, the blasted thing's like a South American bolo, wrapping me up so tight, so fast I can't bust free. Somehow it's neutralizing my powers as well. These aren't John Byrne's greatest panels, in my opinion. I mean, this top one, this middle splashier, but yeah, it's not his best work. You'll see a stark contrast in the next issue with his art, because it's a different inker, a better inker, in my opinion. So that bolo is this device is neutralizing his powers. Excellent, as the master predicted. Our special bolo has rendered Havok helpless. Prepare the injection. I want him unconscious as soon as we're airborne. And he's like pleading with him to help Lorna. And I won't give you any more trouble. Just help her. When you have one tiger by the tail, stripling, you do not release it so you can go looking for its mate. Your promise means nothing, Havok. You couldn't give us trouble now if you tried. As far as the girl is concerned, she is unimportant and expendable. And as you can see, she's grasping onto a rock here. So, dawn in Scotland, 2 a.m. in the snowbound Big Apple. Most of the ESU campus is dark and deserted, yet lights still gleam on the upper floors of the science building. They just let students stay in the buildings all night? Yeah, I don't know about that. Specifically, the advanced chem lab occupied by the very tired senior, Peter Parker by name. So he's a senior in college. 1978, he's a senior in college for the Marvel timeline. Of course, they have to change timelines and update things, but the time has come, the Walrus said, to call it a night. I've been at it 6 hours without a break. My brain's starting to unravel. Between school and worrying about Aunt May, I haven't had much time left to playing superhero lately. Good thing life's been quiet. Aunt May and Amazing Spider-Man at the time had a heart attack. A light's on in the Professor Craig's office, but he left hours ago. Someone's in there all right, and they're trying very hard not to make a sound. So much for my good night's sleep. Jamil, I found it. The Master's Mystic Ankh. Good. Base reports that out of Scottish, that there's a typo there. Our Scottish assault team has successfully captured the American youth Havok. All must be in readiness by the time arrives. What the heck? I've stayed up this late. No harm in making it an all-nighter. And he webs up the door frame. Besides, this sounds like too interesting a caper to pass up. Now, if these guys will only stay put while I pull my traditional quick change, should be all over but the shouting. With the hall lights out, they won't spot my webbing till it's too late. Can't wait to see their faces. What's keeping them? I figured they were almost finished. So Spider-Man is not aware that the Egyptian team here is going out the window and have their hovercraft. Like I said, still not some of John Byrne's best panels. I mean, these aren't the most exciting panels to draw, and I understand this is just more setup, but usually John Byrne has a lot more detail here. I would say this is, John Byrne was doing a lot of work. Chris Claremont and John Byrne first collaborated on Iron Fist. Not the original Iron Fist that was out of Marvel Premiere number 15 and had a short little run in Marvel Premiere. That wasn't John Byrne, Chris Claremont. In 75, they started their own. That happened in 74. And then 75 to 77, Iron Fist got his own book. And that was Chris Claremont and John Byrne. Eventually, I'm going to go over some of those books. Those are some of the best, in my opinion. But once again, he never had a consistent inker on the Iron Fist title as well. So, probably a lot of freelance inking going on at the time. And, people were spread kind of thin and the deadlines. Marvel was notorious for not making deadlines. So at that time, that was one of the things Jim Shooter tried to correct when he took over. Jim Shooter was took over from Archie Goodwin. Archie Goodwin was the editor-in-chief. Archie Goodwin, the guy that created Luke Cage. Says, we have the Ankh, and the copy we left in its place is so perfect the good professor shouldn't even know the difference. Even if he did, Jamil, by morning it will no longer matter. The master will possess the ultimate power, and no nation or super being on earth will dare oppose us. No super being? The Hulk? The Hulk can't oppose you? Okay. Or Thor? Hate to burst your bubble, Bunkies, but your boss's dream of empire just hit a pothole. What the? Spider-Man. What's he doing here? How could he have known? Well, because he's Peter Parker, student, ESU student. Quickly, Rashid, he's tangled up in something in the doorway. Let's get out of here while they have the chance. Oh, for crying out loud. How could I be so dumb? I'm stuck in my own web. Chris Claremont always liked to write Spider-Man kind of bumbling. He kind of was in a way, but why me, Lord? Why me? I'm not beaten yet. I may be stuck, but my trusty, dusty spider tracer isn't. Wherever these guys go, I'll be able to follow them. So how come I still feel like a dunce? Still better than sitting around a coffee shop talking about feminism. All right, Muir Island, and an hour after sunrise, and you've got Lorna Dane, who is soaking wet here, and she's making a call. But who is she calling? 3,000 miles away in a certain mansion located in New York's Westchester County. See, why can't we get this Spider-Man in a movie? Yeah, they can't. They don't know how to write Spider-Man. I mean, Hollywood doesn't know how to write superheroes. I'm sorry. They really don't. No, that's a great point. They do not. They hire people. They hire industry insiders instead of. Now, Frank Miller might be able to, but Frank Miller's not really interested in superheroes. You know what I mean? Yeah, they've still not gotten it right. They got a little closer with the Andrew Garfield thing, but the Tobey Maguire was not right. Oh boy, or oh no, or I mean he would make some little, but it was so. It just wasn't Spider-Man. Now I like those Tobey Maguire Spider-Mans. Yeah, it a little wittier, but. That's Spider-Man's whole shtick is being a supreme smartass, no matter what's going on. You'll see that here. But that's a good point. They don't write Spider-Man. They don't write these characters right. Next issue, I'll really be hammering home that point with another character. Phone rings and rings and rings, but no one answers. Already losing my voice. I don't get it. It's 3 a.m. in New York. Someone should be home. And if the X-Men are out on a mission, she's shivering, so they've got her stuttering. Cerebro should have automatically taken the call. I'm trying to keep the microphone. I know this microphone doesn't pick up my voice when I turn my head. Only one other hope. Please, God, let him be there. And you see a furry blue guy that's roasting something on in a fireplace. Fabulous Fury Freak. Oh, marshmallows. That's a marshmallow? Oh, John Byrne. Okay. Yeah, John Byrne's forte is not marshmallows. Only one other hope. Please, God, let him be there. Fabulous Fury Freak Farm, the Marshmallow Kid talking at you. I love the way they write Beast. Not in the movies, but hi, Lorna. Long time no see. How are you and Alex? What? Moments later, I understand. I'll handle things from this end. In the meantime, you take care of yourself. It won't do it all to bring Alex home in triumph to find you dying of pneumonia. I'll be in touch, Lorna. And I like the way they hang around in they still hang around like the Avengers Mansion, and they're suited. I said this on the last last week when I did one of these. I like my superheroes in their costumes, all right? Now, I know that's not a modern thing, but Beast, where goest thou? Hast thou forgot what we are on standby alert? I've forgotten nothing, Goldilocks, but some things come up and the bashful beasties gotta move fast. My best to the home folks, big fella. I might struggle reading Thor a little bit. Passing strange. The beast deserts his post, then takes a Quinjet that federal agent Guy Rich hath forbidden us to use. 'Tis most unlike him. His words were jocular, yet his mind was more grim. I heard that. His mind. I guess that's how mine. Yeah. Yet his mind was more grim than e'er I have seen before. 'Tis no small thing that plagues him, methinks, but a matter of life and death. See, this is how I like Thor. In battle, it's a little better, but I like Shakespearean Thor. I mean, kind of Shakespearean Thor. At that very moment, oh boy, things are jumping tonight. That's an Avengers Quinjet, I do believe. Looks like one of our local legends is in a big hurry. Wonder what's up. Full details, frantic ones can be found in X-Men 111 on sale next month. Archie. Well, you know that Chris Claremont, and I'll be talking about this later when I finish up. Chris Claremont and John Byrne are taking over the X-Men at the same time. Now they have time to do multiple books because you got to remember the X-Men isn't monthly. The X-Men at this point is still not monthly. But John Byrne and Chris Claremont take over X-Men and X-Men number 108, and they're talking about 111. This is Claremont's way of setting up a side storyline in another book that he's doing. So he has Spider-Man notice the Quinjet racing somewhere. Whatever it is, I got troubles enough of my own. I almost feel like John Byrne is drawing Spider-Man in this issue kind of a little like Steve Ditko-esque style. There may be a reason for that. Whatever it is, I got troubles enough of my own. I was getting a pretty strong signal from the tracer until a few minutes ago when it suddenly disappeared. Either it's been found or destroyed, or the hover cars dropped behind some pretty sophisticated shields. Without that bug, I haven't a hope. Hey, that ambulance, the driver's outfit matches the clothes of the goons I'm chasing. This may be the break I needed. The sign on this gate said this was somebody's embassy. With my luck, it's probably Latvarius. I love that. What Doc Doom would be doing with these comic opera refugees from the Ten Commandments meets Star Wars is beyond me, though. So far, so good. The ambulance guys in funny hats are being met by gun-toting guys in funny hats. Hurry, you fool. The stasis tapes have nearly reached saturation point. They will not hold Havok much longer. You worry too much, Ahmed. Okay. Sorry. We've come this far without a hitch. What can happen to us now? Definitely some Steve Ditko-esque looking Spider-Man panel design here in the panel. No webs here on the. I know it's a extended shot, but it's normally he would draw some sort of webbing detail there. Plus the eyes, plus the way he's drawing the eyes here, are very, very much like Steve Ditko would. I did like Kelsey Grammer or whatever voicing the Beast. I did like definitely. Oh yeah, that's how I imagine the Beast. He's a smart, he's the funniest dude, and he's comical and witty, but he's also the smartest dude. Yeah, he's the smartest dude on the X-Men. Now, originally they didn't intend to write him that way. They wanted to make him, literally more like a beast. But when he had a second mutation, the writers were like, why not make him, he looks like a blue gorilla, but let's make him the smartest guy. He's a biochemist and all that stuff. He's right up there with like Hank Pym level smarts. And in the comic books, Hank Pym is much smart. Hank Pym is much more scientific than Tony Stark. The MCU kind of ran with this Tony Stark being this super genius type. In the comic books, not so much. He is brilliant, but nothing like Reed Richards or Hank Pym or even Hank McCoy, the Beast, or whatever. Holy cow, that's the matter. What's the matter with my mind anyway? I should have realized this ages ago. That guy on the stretcher must be that Havok character. The goons in Craig's office were talking about kidnapping us. We're talking about kidnapping. Oh, it's a good panel. It's still not John Byrne's best, but that reminds me of a few of his Iron Fist action panels where he comes in. Like I said, I love John Byrne. He's my all-time favorite comic book artist. It's not even close. In my opinion, I love John Byrne, but this isn't the strongest Byrne issue. Still good, but And if that isn't my cue to make like Captain Crimebuster, I don't know what is. And he just smokes him here by your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, no less. I hope you boys feel flattered. It's one of those cursed superheroes. Those are the breaks, sweetheart. But why not look on the bright side? I could have been Godzilla or the Thing even. Hang on, fella. I'll have you on your feet in a jiffy. A wasted effort, dog. For in a moment you'll be dead. More of them? These bozos don't know when to quit. Dive for cover, pal. I'll try to draw their fire. In a word, Spider-Man, no. Yeah, I love how they... Havok's just a cool design character. He has a simple design, pure black outfit. But man, his power, the way they depict his powers is one of the coolest in all the comic books, in my opinion. These animals killed the woman I love. Now, you don't know that, but, he's assuming. And now they're going to pay for it as only Havok can make them pay. Yeah, it's not really going to be a fight here now. Oh, his power's unbelievable. For an instant, it was as if he was transformed himself into a living star. Yeah, that's what Havok does. He draws on the cosmic rays there's cosmic rays everywhere. They're the magnetic field of the earth and the atmosphere, protect to a certain extent, but he can still, that's his mutant power. He can draw from cosmic power of the universe. Man, I hope I never get him mad at me. Watch your back, sunshine. We've got company. Let them come. The more, the merrier. Brief fight, and despite the seemingly overwhelming numerical odds, the outcome is never really in doubt. They just don't do action in comic books like this anymore. Like I said on the Avengers issues that I covered last week, they just don't do this anymore. I don't know. It's a shame. Well, I think that's the end of it. Friend, it just started. All we've done is bruise our knuckles on an army of flunkies. Beating them doesn't mean anything unless we beat their boss man. Yikes. Oh, great panel by John Byrne. Too busy drinking coffee and talking about equality. Yeah, it's just when they do action, it's just not, they've got some talented artists right now in the industry, but they're not talented comic book artists. There's a difference between drawing pretty pictures and posed characters and actually drawing an action sequence. And John Byrne's one of the best. Yeah, when I do end up showing, I got cat here. When I do end up showing the Iron Fist, you'll see how John Byrne does Iron Fist. Amazing. And Frank Miller, I'm going to do some Frank Miller. Probably the next episode, I'm going to be doing some Frank Miller stuff. Not stuff you think, though. And you just see the difference between these guys and the new guys that they have. It's not even close. And that X-Men will never do. Just a great shot there. Havok is Spidey barely dodged it, and I think Havok caught a little of it there. Miserable barbarians, you dare set your pitiful powers against one who wields the eldritch might of ancient Egypt. You dare defy the living pharaoh. I'll say this for the guy, he sure knows how to make an entrance. Is he for real? Very much so. The X-Men have fought the living pharaoh way back in the 60s. They had a run in. I think Havok was a part of that. I can't remember exactly, but I think Havok was a part of those issues. I have waited a long time for this moment, Alex Summers. Before the night is over, one of us will emerge triumphant, and it will be I. Big talk, Buster. Let's see how good it sounds after we've stuffed that fancy helmet of yours down your throat. Got to play this very cool. I've got to keep the Pharaoh occupied till Havok's on his feet. He caught the brunt of that energy blast. I've read this issue. I probably read this issue 20, 30 times when I was a kid. I loved Marvel Team Up. It wasn't my number one. My number one was pretty much Amazing Spider-Man and Avengers. But if I had extra money, Marvel Team Up was right there. If I could find it on the spinner rack at the grocery stores. Sometimes there was some issues that just weren't there. You know, distribution was so spotty back in those days. People don't realize how good they've got it now when it comes to the might of Egypt, Apocalypse. I never liked that character. I know that it was kind of a super popular character and all that. I never got into that character. I really hated that movie. I saw that movie in the movie theater. Wish I could have my money back from that, but I went to see the only Fox X-Men movie I didn't see in the movie theater was the Phoenix one. I had enough. Sometimes you have to beat me over the head before I was like, okay, this clearly isn't working. And that's the one that came out after the Apocalypse. Insolent pup, take care lest I squash you like the insect you are. I'll believe that bunkie when I see it. Me and my big mouth. Allah preserve me. Spider-Man, but what? How? What? Why? How? He lies so still. Oh, no, oh, Allah, no, it can't be. He can't. Meanwhile, in the courtyard below, the Pharaoh's blast shot Spidey out of here like a rocket. So it would be a miracle if he survives. That's 2 lives you owe me, Butcher, and I mean to collect. Times have changed since we last met. I'm no kid anymore. Epic X-Men 55 to 57. I couldn't remember what it was. I know I've read those issues, but God, it's been a long time. I'm going to have to revisit some of those issues. Like I said, I wasn't, at this point, early 1978 as a kid, 9-year-old kid, I was not into the X-Men. That would soon change. I know what my power is and what I can do, and I'm no longer afraid to use it. I'm no longer afraid of it or afraid to use it. I can't read tonight. For long, seemingly infinite minutes, both men stand still as statues, neither giving an inch as raw, naked energy roars around them. You can see one of his flunkies coming with that Ankh. I guess that's the Ankh they stole from the Egyptian professors. I don't know if it's archaeology class or whatever. I have him great when he slings the Ankh on his neck. You have done well, Kasim. As I planned, the Ankh turned Havok's power against himself and smashed him down. He is alive, barely, and totally helpless. Take him to the laboratory. I will join you once I have prepared myself for the transformation. Transformation. And this is just some setup here of them transporting Havok into some encasement. This table isn't the most comfortable of beds, Infidel, but in your condition, I doubt you'll complain. It looks like he's in some sort of trance here. You needn't look so worried either, boy. This won't be the last time the Pharaoh wants your power. This won't be like the last time the Pharaoh wants your power, true, but it's not your life. X-Men number 56. This casing doesn't cut you off from the cosmic rays you and the Pharaoh both absorb and metabolize. Quite the opposite. It makes you operate at peak power and then it absorbs that power, amplifies it. Explain the whole plan to him. It absorbs that power, amplifies it, and broadcasts it to the Pharaoh, making him stronger than he's ever been. I mean, in all fairness to Chris Claremont, you have to write Marvel Team Up differently than you write the X-Men. You don't have the luxury of years of plotline threads. You got to get this shit done. Got to get on with the story. Same time, the systems will keep his living battery, in perfect health. Rest in peace. The casing, it won't close. Pal, I had a feeling you'd say that. Spider-Man. But that's impossible. The Great One's blast should have pulverized you. Really? Gosh, I thought it was just his way of saying hello. That's how you write Spider-Man. I wish I felt as confident as I sound. That zap came about as close to punching my ticket as anything I've ever faced. Nothing's broken, but I can't make a move without some part of my body going, ouch. Got to make this short and sweet. I'm in no shape for a real scrape, probably. Let's see if I heard that right, flunky. The Ankh is scrambling Havok's nervous system, paralyzing him. So all I have to do to cure him is remove it. Stop, Spider-Man. Touch that talisman. Make even the slightest move toward Havok, and you will feel the wrath of one who is the personification of the gods Horus and Osiris. You've got to be kidding. I've seen some oddball outfits in my day, Pharaoh, but yours takes the cake. What show are you trying out for? I love this. This is awesome. Anyway, The Wiz or Star Wars 2? I love reading this old Star Wars 2, huh? Okay. Of course, in 1978, they didn't even know if they were going to make a sequel. I mean, they figured they were going to, but they hadn't named it yet. So I like going back and seeing some of this stuff. Star Wars 2. Do not make light of my sacred garb, Witling. My energy bolts struck you down once and can easily do again. Only if they hit me, shiny top, and that's a lot easier said than done. You tagged me before with a wide beam blast. Only you can't fire one in here without destroying your own equipment. In fact, you've got to be careful about where you place your shots. Because the one that gets me might also be the one that sets Havok free. Or maybe drops the roof down on your top of your shovel-shaped little head. Me, I got no such worries. I could wrap you up in webbing faster than you can blink. And he hits Living Pharaoh here with an uppercut. But in your case, I'm going to finish the fight up close and personal. Pleasant dreams, sunshine. That's not... You can see John Byrne's influence from his 2-year run on Iron Fist. They ended up canceling Iron Fist in 1977, year prior to this book coming out. And then, of course, they re-up the character in the pages of Power Man. They merged the two instead of just scrapping the entire concept of having them each have their own monthly book, which the sales couldn't really support. I mean, sales of comic books were down overall at this time period. I mean, people were broke. I was broke, and I didn't start my paper out until like 2 years after this. I think I was 11. And then I had some comic book money. I was always late with my papers, but I don't care. I was too busy reading comic books. Okay, but in your case, I'm going to finish this fight up close and personal. Pleasant dreams, sunshine. It's an impressive punch. On any other night against any other foe, it probably would have ended this fight. Trouble is Spidey's unconsciously made a fatal miscalculation as the force of his blows hurls the Pharaoh back toward Havok's crystal casing. The webbing holds under the impact. The ceiling doesn't. And the encasing is the chamber is closed. Click. Gods of the Middle Kingdom, I knew you were with me. From out of the jaws of defeat, you have given me the ultimate victory. As before, the cosmic rays are changing me from mere mutant into something far greater. Yeah, the living pharaoh is a mutant. Yeah, he is considered. I mean, he was, like I said, he was an X-Men villain. They were trying to kind of do an Egyptian. They were throwing things at the wall, see what stuck. Back then the X-Men weren't. The X-Men had like a small following, but they weren't. It was a low tier book. It wasn't selling much, and so they were always trying to come up with the next Magneto. Magneto was the big villain and the one that the fans, the one that resonated with the fans the most. But they made like an Egyptian version of Magneto, and that's what the Living Pharaoh is. But this is ends up being a kind of a cool twist of the character. As before, the cosmic rays are changing me from mere mutant into something far greater, reshaping me into the living embodiment of the power cosmic, I guess. Professor Abdul, who called himself the Living Pharaoh, is no more. In his place, the Living Monolith walks the earth once more. Spidey, I think you just did a very dumb thing. Oh, that's so awesome. That is just awesome, man. God. Now, that's John Byrne flexing a little bit there. Still not the best. I mean, it's still not top John Byrne, but definitely the best panel in this book. Be honored, Spider-Man, for all of humanity's teeming billions. You will be the first to fall before the irresistible might, and no power on earth can save you. Hey, big fella, you sure we can't talk this over? No, I didn't think we could. Next, Spidey joins forces with Thor as he learns whom gods destroy. So that is Marvel Team Up number 69. Huge cliffhanger. I remember I couldn't wait to get the next issue as a kid. I was like, oh my God, Spidey is dead. Wait, did they just give Tony Stark Spider-Man's banner? Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. Tony Stark is Spider-Man as far as they turned Spider-Man into Soy Boy and they turned Tony Stark into Spider-Man. You're exactly right. Yeah, I mean, everybody, but they're all cracking jokes except Spider-Man. They got Star-Lord cracking jokes. Interesting enough, and I'll save that. I'll save that next thought for the next. So let's go right into. I actually have this set up on my Stream Deck, where it should bring it right up. Yes, I actually did a little preparation, even though I really wasn't prepared. Yeah, I got thrown for a loop when my Elgato. The boom arm thing didn't show up for my, or whatever you call it, the post, that Elgato post for my camera didn't show up. I could clamp it on my desk. So we have, once again, 1978. This, I think the publication date on this is May, but that wasn't the shipping date. It was before that. Pretty sure I was still in school when this came out. I think I was in 5th grade. Maybe 4th grade when this came out. This might have been one of the comic books that got taken from me. As a kid, I had a lot of comic books taken from me by teachers. One time because I would sit there and read them in class and they would get mad. And one time they sent me to a back room because you want to read comic books, and they set me in a back room by myself and gave me my comic books and let me read. That actually happened. I mean, no big deal, but I'm like, sure, I'd rather read comic books than listen to your old crabby ass. But the Marvel, they have a little caption here on the cover. The Marvel Bullpen proudly presents this month's outstanding achievement in comics art. And I think you're going to see what they're referring to here. I forgot to mention the cover. The cover of number 69 was actually drawn by Dave Cockrum. who was coming off of the X-Men. They wanted to they were just ready to make the X-Men monthly, and Dave Cockrum couldn't make deadlines. Dave Cockrum is an awesome artist. I love his covers a lot more than his interiors, because you can tell his interiors are a little rushed. I'm eventually going to go over Giant Size X-Men #1 someday. That's like a future future episode down the road. I'm going to be covering Giant Size X-Men #1 and maybe X-Men #95. When Dave Cockrum was still on the book. But Chris Claremont had just Lynn Wein was writing the book, but he gave it up to Chris Claremont because nobody wanted it. They covered that on that Chris Claremont X-Men documentary that they have on multiple streaming platforms. But anyway, When Walks the Living Monolith. This is Dave Cockrum as well, I believe. But that last cover of 69 was all Dave Cockrum. You can tell. I'm pretty sure this might be Dave Cockrum as well, but I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, it is. You can tell by Thor's pose. That's a classic. The leg poses here, and it's like, oh, how can you tell? You can just tell. If you've looked at enough comic book art, you can tell this style. That's Dave Cockrum. Now, I'm not used to Dave Cockrum drawing Spider-Man, so it wouldn't like naturally resonate with me. But Dave Cockrum did a lot of covers for Marvel at this time. He was one of their main cover guys. Oh, here we go. Whew. Now we've got Tony DeZuniga as the inker instead of Ricardo Villamonte. To me, he's a better inker, and he was much more of like a mainstay at Marvel. He did a lot more work at Marvel. Ricardo Villamonte still does inking, but I think it's more like independent, like Dark Horse. So, I mean, he's got to be in his like 70s now or whatever. But Jim Shooter, editor. So during the time of last issue and this, Jim Shooter has taken over from Archie Goodwin as the. And this is significant to what the little story I'm going to tell at the end of this issue. Jim Shooter becoming editor here is significant of what happens, kind of what happens in the Marvel offices. But that still refers to what kind of a confrontation John Byrne had and Terry Austin had with Archie Goodwin. It was kind of Archie Goodwin's last decision. I'm just kind of assuming. So once again, Chris Claremont, John Byrne. Now we've got Tony DeZuniga, who has inked John Byrne in the past. I believe he inked a few issues of Iron Fist. I know Dave Hunt and Dan Green did some issues as well, inking, and it makes a difference. The inker does make a difference. You can see it when Terry Austin is with John Byrne. Gods of ancient Egypt, rejoice. I keep harping on. I'm just a big fan of comic book art. I can't help it. So let's get back to the mode here. Here we go. Whom gods destroy. Gods of ancient Egypt, rejoice. And he's still got Spidey in his grasp here. The living monolith walks the earth once more. And I love the faces down here. These people that are running this cop. Whoa, boy. John, what is it? I don't know, babe, and I don't ever want to know. Let's get out of here. I'd love to know who they're basing some of these faces are, because they do that a lot. They base them on like fellow, like people in the Marvel offices and stuff. They do that stuff all the time. Really cool opening panel. How can you not want to read the rest? I, humans, flee before the irresistible might of one who is the personification of Horus and Osiris. Yeah, you got to that's his big claim. You got to re-up it for the new issue. Lest I crush you beneath the heel like the insects you are. I remember it took me a couple months to get this issue. I didn't, I was under the mercy of when my mom went to the grocery store. So I didn't get the comic book store didn't exist in this time. This is still mid 1978. So it was a couple months before I found this issue at the drugstore when my mom had to go to the Ross's drugstore. And they would keep some of the old ones on the rack, on the magazine racks. And God, I was like, I'd go in there and like scan. I'd go in there and some of them were in lousy shape, but I didn't care. I wasn't collecting. I wasn't in 1978. The condition of the books and the collecting wasn't even on my mind. I wanted to read these, stories. He can do it too. 5 minutes ago, when he was just another hyperactive supervillain, I could have handled him. Got to keep him preoccupied though. Thwap. He webs up his eyes. That's Spidey's go-to move when he's out muscled. That's kind of his go-to move. Give that crowd time to scatter. Hey, Tin Top, you can't stop. Hey, Tin Top, you can't stomp what you can't see. Sheesh, grade A webbing, and he tore it like it was tissue paper. I mean, what'd you expect? Insulin arachnid, this time you go too far. What does that mean? You're mad at me? So he throws Spider-Man. I always wonder, why didn't he just crush him, I have suffered your taunts long enough, because then you wouldn't have a story. I have suffered your taunts long enough, mortal. Now you will pay for them with your miserable life. And he throws him like a rocket. I'm going like a rocket. Like I said, I've read this a million times. Acceleration nearly knocked me out. No time to set up a shot. Got to fire blind and hope I connect. Cripes. There we go with Cripes again. That was Chris Claremont's big thing. Cripes I missed. He even had Luke Cage saying that stuff when he wrote some Luke Cage issues. Would Luke Cage really say Cripes? I'm pretty sure he had Luke Cage did. I might be proven wrong by that, but when I go over those issues of Power Man Iron Fist. No chance for a second try. I'm too close to the street, moving too fast. Even if the webbing sticks, my momentum will still slam me into the ground. I guess this is it. Be not afraid, wall climber. Was that? The death goddess Hela shall not claim thee while Thor is here to give thee aid. Another shave as close as that, Goldilocks, and I'll make it easy for the lady by dropping dead of a heart attack. But thanks anyway. After the aid thou hast given the Avengers in days past, I could do no less. But tell me, my young friend, how come thee to such dire straits? And it's kind of weird. Thor wasn't actually a member of the Avengers at this time. In Avengers 150, they kind of did a revamping of their lineup. And they, basically Wonder Man kind of took the place of Thor. They had a long run of a backstory line with Thor mysteriously disappeared, and it all came to a front when in the Havok Korvac series that Jim Shooter wrote in 1979 with the Avengers. So eventually I'll get to those. That's some George Perez stuff. Eventually I'll get to those issues. Those are classic issues. But Thor was always kind of mysteriously disappearing and reappearing, and even Thor really didn't know what was going on. He would just kind of vanish. And it brought some drama to the book because the Avengers are much less powerful without Thor, of course. So it's a long story, pal, and I don't understand any of it, but here goes. I tracked some burglars to a Middle East embassy up the street, slipped inside, and discovered they were kidnappers as well. Their victim was a super-powered type named Havok. So Thor is on the scene now. Whew, give me a minute to catch my breath. That fall took more out of me than I thought. Anyway, the guy behind exposition here. Anyway, the guy behind all this, the living pharaoh, needed Havok to amplify his own mutant powers. I almost stopped him, but I blew it. And the Pharaoh was transformed into the Living Monolith. Pretty impressive, huh? And from the looks of it, he's still growing. Last issue, Jim. Thou hast fought bravely, Spider-Man. I love the way... This is the way you write Thor. I mean, come on. Thou hast fought bravely, Spider-Man. Not this. Oh, Jane. Oh God, man. MCU Thor. They almost got it in the first Thor movie because they had an actually good director directing the first Thor. And whatever people think about the first Thor movie, it's more spot on Thor, especially Asgardian stuff, than any of the other ones. Yeah, I'm fair. They've made a mockery of the character. I understand. I'm talking about stuff from 1978, and I'm old and set in my ways, but they've still made a mockery of the character. But thou art no match for yon giant. Stay here, my friend. Thor will do battle for thee. Unaware of the Thunder God's approach, the monolith makes its way down Fifth Avenue. That's just begun to fill with rush hour traffic. Could have been a massacre. Harley, oh my God, Harley, that foot. We're pinned by the cars around us, sissy. We can't get out. That's a Mercury car. Okay. Bah, only mortals are forced to walk the earth. A god may walk the sky. He's rising in the air. Hold, villain. I love that panel. I absolutely love that panel. Before thou dost take another step, be it on earth or air, thou wilt answer for thy manifold crimes to the God of thunder. I am the living monolith, Nat. I answer to no one. He just backhands Thor. Whammo. Just two great panels. I love that top panel. I love the energy effect of the living monolith. That's awesome. I am the living monolith, Nat. I answer to no one. Thor comes crashing down. Heimdall's eyes. It seems I have underestimated my foe. His power is the equal of his size, and bids fair to rival that of the dread destroyer and mayhap Thanos. But he will find that it will take more than one blow, however strong, to stop a warrior born. I like the Thanos references from there's two MCU references. The Dread Destroyer, Asgardian Destroyer, that was in Thor 1, and then, of course, Thanos. But he will find that it will take more than one blow, however strong, to stop a warrior born. That is what heroes do. From Thor Ragnarok. Do heroes sit around and then Thor gets fat and then he plays Fortnite and then talks shit online? Is that what Thor does? Really? A glutton for punishment, eh, little man? Are you fool enough to think your hammer is a match for one who wields the power? I draw my strength from the primal fabric of the universe itself. Can you say the same? Yeah, that's another John Byrne depiction of how Thor uses his hammer. You can use it to, he spins it to, he can create like an energy portal or like a dimensional portal. He can spin it to like block energy blasts. I sense truth in his words. My mystic mallet, Mjolnir. That's the way I used to pronounce it as a kid. They had to take the most masculine Hulk and Thor and drag them for. Oh, exactly. You're 100% for social cred. What the fuck is that? I mean, I'd rather get a character right and not and risk offending people that have no idea about this stuff. They don't give a shit about this stuff. They really don't. They just, like you said, the social credit is all they care about. They don't give a fuck about this stuff. Pardon my language. My mystic mallet Mjolnir, let's do that right, deflects his energy blast. He called it Mjolnir. I used to pronounce it as a kid, Mjolnir. I had no idea how to pronounce that. I would say Mjolnir. I think my friend Anthony, his mom was an English teacher at Ball State University. She tried to tell us that was pronounced Mjolnir. Mjolnir. She tried to correct us on that. because she would come up while we were reading comic books in his room with him. It was me, him, and his brother, younger brother Daniel, and we would sit around. We would lay around all day in a room and read comic books and argue about comic books. And she would try to pronounce the words for us sometime and try to give us the meaning and stuff like that. But I was like, nah, it's Mjolnir. There's a J right there. I was a dumbass. Still am, and oh well. Anyway, I'm not going to read that again. But only just, and his power increases with every passing second. We used to argue about the pronunciation of Thor's hammer. Man, I haven't felt so useless since the thing and I helped the Avengers beat Thanos. 2-in-1 annual number 2. That is a good issue. And it's a feeling I don't like. Common theme in Marvel team up that Spider-Man is out-muscled. Because, I mean, the villain's got to match the co-star, Thor fighting street level thugs, Thor against, Spider-Man's rogue gallery that's not a fight. Okay, so what if I haven't got the muscle to hold my own in this fight? I still have a brain. How about I try using it for once? I might surprise everyone. There's Havok in the crystal coffin Tin Top's goons dumped him into. If I remember what they said, the ankh around Havok's head keeps him paralyzed. That casing is the key to the monolith's power. Well, the casing absorbs his cosmic energy and broadcasts it to the monolith. So logically, if we zap the casing, Tin Top's power goes shit. Thor, hey Thor, free the kid in the coffin and the monolith's beaten. Thor's like, oh, okay. As thou wishest, Spider-Man. 'Tis not a stratagem wholly to my liking, but if 'twill defeat our foe before any innocents are harmed, the son of Odin will take thy advice. My hammer is thrown in another instant. Yon crystal casement will be shattered. Benighted simpleton, that's the worst thing you could have done. The casing is booby-trapped. If you smash it, the boy will die, and the universe-shaking power will be mine forever. I gotta get a drink. Blast. This day's been kicking me in the butt since it began. Every time I try something, it backfires. I love this sequence coming up. Gotta snag Goldie's hammer. Try to turn it. Yeah, right. So far, so good. I've got a good grip on the web line and on this roof as well. Any second now, the line will pull taut, and yikes. Yeah, good plan, Spidey. You're really going to stop Thor's hammer, sure? Something tells me I should have let go as Spider-Man ends up going through. I love this sequence here. 3 different colored rooms. At least I managed to divert the hammer, and I'm getting a guided tour of the embassy to boot. Trouble is, if I let go now, I'll be mashed flatter than a, huh? Oh, no. Great sequence. Hella's ghost. What? Hey, Thor, stop the hammer. I want to get off. Hey, Thor, stop the hammer. I want to get off. Spider-Man, methinks thy knack for the arts of war doth rival that of my comrade Volstagg. Volstagg is one of the Warriors 3, the big glutton that's always eating. And they don't really depict him that well in the MCU. He's like super rotund in the comic books. And he's always got he's always eating a big leg of some kind of Asgardian animal or some shit. Or drinking wine or something. I don't know why, but I get the feeling I've just been insulted. Where's the monolith? There, my friend. As far as he is concerned, the battle is ended, and he hath won. We are no longer worthy of his attention. But in turning his back upon the god of thunder, he hath made a fatal mistake. I am far from beaten, mortal. Yon Monolith names himself a son of the gods of ancient Egypt, so be it. Though I have met those gods and know him to be a no true son of theirs, let us see how well he fares. The last time in 2-1, number 22 and number 23, Jim. I'm not sure I've ever read those two. That would be The Thing and Thor. I'm not sure I've ever read those two issues. Might have to check those out. Marvel 2-1, since the success of Marvel Team Up and Spider-Man being popular, another really popular character was Ben Grimm, the Thing. And Marvel Team Up originally was the Human Torch. It was the Human Torch and Spider-Man, they were flip-flopping. They were like trading off on the first year of Marvel Team Up. Marvel Team Up started in, I think, 1973. Don't quote me on that. Might have been 72, 73. But yeah, it was originally the Human Torch. But Spider-Man was Marvel's number one character, the most mainstream character Marvel had at the time. Of course, in the 80s, it was still a big character, but that kind of changed. So Thor, I got sidetracked again. Thor throws his hammer against a warrior son of fabled Asgard, and it smokes Living Monolith in the back there. The impact shatters skyscraper windows throughout lower Manhattan and wakes over 1 million people living around New York Harbor. A lot of them quite naturally assume it's the end of the world. So you're seeing Thor's real power when he throws his hammer here. And indeed, for the crew of the tugboat Molly D, traversing the upper bay where the monolith hits, it very nearly is. Another great panel there. Now we're gonna see John Byrne flexing here a little bit. Still not the best inker finishing him up, but you're gonna see some John Byrne flexing here, no doubt. Odin's blood. I did not see the mortal sea craft till after I had struck. Thor, what? I have unwittingly endangered yon vessel. I must go quickly to its aid before the monolith recovers. Lord of mercy, something's grabbing us fore and aft. Bail out, you men, abandon ship. Oh, I might have to zoom out on this one. You have caused me pain, Avenger. And let's zoom out and look. Oh, this is my favorite panel in the whole two issues. This is John Byrne at his finest. And for that crime, the penalty is death. Monster, I say thee nay. Just that's unbelievable. They just don't make panels like this anymore, man. Like I said earlier, like I said last episode, the quality of the paper's better, everything's slicker, everything's digital, but man, you'll be hard pressed to see a modern comic book emulate the quality of this panel, the excitement, the action. He throws the tugboat at Thor, and he just says, "Monster, I say thee nay," and smashes it. John Byrne was known for debris detail. Him and George Perez both. They say that they would compete. Like, oh, look how much debris that John Byrne showed in this panel, and George Perez would be like, oh, really? Okay. Let me up the ante a little bit. Let me click on let's get back to the, man, I got to scroll over to get all this giant splash page. No more will innocents be placed at hazards by our battle. I will create a breeze to push the tugboat's crew towards the shore, and then I will create a tempest such as this world hath never seen. Rise, ye winds, in the name of him who is thy master, and teach this errant knave which of us is truly worthy of the title God. In my opinion, that's how you write Thor. Not feminist Thor. Shakespearean Thor. Well, I mean, it's not really Shakespearean, but you know what I mean. Meanwhile, a few miles uptown, Thor's tossing some pretty impressive shots, but the monolith's tapping a near infinite energy source, cosmic rays. Can Thor beat that? So he hijacks they're up on I believe that's like the Empire, maybe the Empire or the Chrysler building or something, or Empire State Building. I'm not sure. It's a really tall building. And he hijacks this innocent couple here. He hijacks the viewfinder, the mounted binoculars. He wants to see what's going on here. If I were Tin Top, I sure wouldn't leave my living battery lying around waiting to be rescued. Score one for me. The Monolith's comic opera goon squad is loading Havok into a truck. Nice move. While Tin Top holds everyone's attention, you boys slip away, and the guy who's the key to his power. With the guy who's the key to his power. Too bad it isn't going to happen that way. Stop playing around, fool. Kill him. Hey, Bunky, you bozos couldn't scrag me the last time we tussled. What makes you think you can do it now? And that's a classic John Byrne uppercut shot right there. He did that a lot in Iron Fist. Smack. Got to hand it to the Monolith. He covered all his bets. The truck's got diplomatic plates. Even if the cops wanted to stop it, they couldn't. Well, I've stopped the getaway. But how the heck do I get Havok out of the coffin without killing him? First things first, let's see if I can find the booby trap. The spider sense going off. Bingo. At that moment, far to the south, Thor seems to be holding his own. He expected to be winning. What madness is this? The giant staggers under my lightning bolts, yet he doth not fall. Again, I am forced to push my powers to their limits merely to keep the varlet at bay. The strain is beginning to tell, even as mine immortal sinews fall prey to fatigue. The Monolith remains as strong as ever. I don't think I'd be saying that out loud to him. I have taken your measure, Asgardian, and I have found you wanting. You claim to command the elements, but I command the cosmic powers, and I will be triumphant. That's an awesome energy, awesome depiction of energy here. Just a great panel. Zounds. The Monolith is going off here. Some kind of sophisticated control unit, but it's like nothing I've ever seen before. 3 main circuits breaking the right wire should free Havok, but which one turns this thing off? And which one blows it up? I'll try this one first. Tingles. I better leave it alone. Same goes for number 2. Green light for the 3rd. Here goes nothing. If I'm wrong, Havok, I'm sorry. Spidey sense, I love you. Even if I did sweat off 20 pounds just now and age 100 years. Hang on, pal. I'll have you out there in a jiffy. Wow. Any second now, Tin Top, you're going to get the surprise of your life, and I wish I could be there to see it happen. So Havok comes back to life and charges up. I am power incarnate, and I feel so strange. Body torn apart within, don't understand. In his distress, the giant hath forgotten about me. I shall use this boon to good advantage and deliver a blow that will shake Midgard to the very core of the realm eternal. The Monolith has vanished. Doth the villain think to escape me? If so, he'll not succeed. Winds of earth, heed thy master's voice. Calm thy fury, and let this tempest cease. It grieves me to admit it, but I fear he hath escaped, and I can waste no more time in futile searching. I must return to the youth, Havok, to make sure that he is alive and unharmed. Yet though I have scoured the harbor with the care and skill of Heimdall, the villain himself remains nowhere to be found. Spider-Man, thou art a true comrade indeed, if it be thy actions that Havok is free. All in a day's work, Blondie. What about the Monolith, Avenger? vanished, mortal, into thin air. I guess when Havok regained his power, old Tin Top shrunk back down to normal size and got blown away by your storm. It'd take a miracle for him to survive that. He'll survive, Spidey. You can count on it. Oh, my God, Lorna. What ails thee, lad? My girl, Lorna Dane. When the Pharaoh's goons snatched me, she got blasted into the sea. I've got to get back to the island. The island's off the coast of Scotland, Thor. Can you Avengers help him? The Avengers web hurler? Nay. The government hath forbidden us the use of our machines. Yeah, this is the time period where the Avengers were being restrained by the federal government because it's kind of like they kind of doubled down later and it's kind of the basis for the whole Civil War thing that they've kind of added on. But in the older days, back in the 70s, when that happened, they were just at odds. It never really brought Captain America and Iron Man to like a civil war. They were just always, it was more the Avengers against the government. And Captain America was always anti, he always thought the government was getting too much power. They weren't electric vehicles, damn gas powered. But Thor counts Anthony Stark. Remember, the Avengers did not know that Tony Stark was Iron Man in all of it. And I prefer it that way. I liked it. I thought it was much more interesting story in comic books when they don't always know everything about each other. Iron Man, they didn't know Iron Man was Tony Stark. Now, there was an exception or two that did know in the Avengers, but they never let it slip. He eventually revealed it, but they always thought Iron Man was just a guy in a suit that was Tony Stark's bodyguard. They didn't know he was Stark. Fine, but they would always talk, not always, but they would talk trash about Tony Stark, even though he was their benefactor. They knew that he was paying for everything and the mansion and everything from his corporation, but they would talk shit about him right in front of Iron Man. And it was always, it always set up the tension, because they didn't realize he was Tony Stark. Fine by me, pal. So long, you two. And Havok, I hope your lady's okay. Well, fare thee well, Spider-Man, until we meet again. And know that the son of Odin shall ever count thee among those he calls his friends. So there's a little story behind this. It says next, and this blurb right here was what got me reading the X-Men. This issue, the end of this issue right here, great issue, by the way. Fun story, quick story. You've got Spider-Man out of his element. He's way overpowered, or he's way out of his league and underpowered but he can contribute, trying to take down the Living Monolith. And you get to see Thor, epic battle with his power. He kind of unleashes some of his controlling of the elements. But and you see the true power of when he throws his hammer. Things, if you're hit by that hammer, bad things happen. I feel like they've underpowered Thor in the MCU a little bit, and it's a damn shame. As Chris and John, it says next. As Chris and John, and when I was a 9-year-old kid, I knew who Chris and John were. I would look through the Iron Fist. They did some other, they would fill in, they're just up and coming creators at this time. They weren't the industry standard. That would soon change, a couple years down the road. But it says next, as Chris and John take time off to begin the new monthly X-Men, which starts at X-Men 111. They went on the book at X-Men 108, and then what happened was that they never wanted to give up on the X-Men. The X-Men always had like a small loyal following, and a lot of the the guys in the Marvel offices, when they've released interviews with them in comic magazines and stuff that I've read over the years, over the decades. They were always fond of those characters, and they never wanted to entirely scrap those characters. And they, anytime when they changed the team, they put Angel and Iceman. They put the Beast on the Avengers, was a great move, by the way. They got rid of Angel and Iceman. They put them on the Champions. And John Byrne and Chris Claremont actually had a small little run on the Champions book as well. Some awesome. I wasn't a big fan of the Champions. They were kind of the Los Angeles' version of the Avengers. The book didn't last very long. It was like Hercules and Black Widow, Ghost Rider, Dark Star, and Angel Iceman. But they never wanted to totally scrap the mutant characters. But the sales of the X-Men still weren't taking off. But there was starting to be a buzz about the book around this time. Early 1978, there was starting to be a buzz about the X-Men. You started seeing more and more stuff about the X-Men. But it's not the X-Men we know now. So Chris and John take time off. New monthly X-Men. Now they did 3 issues bi-monthly, so that's why John Byrne's a fast artist anyway, and they said Chris Claremont can crank out stories. So they were doing multiple books, but they couldn't do Marvel Team Up monthly and X-Men monthly and fill in some other issues of, say, stuff like, well, the Champions had already been canceled at this point, I believe, but they were also filling in from time to time on Power Man Iron Fist, a couple issues. They were actually responsible for the launch of the Power Man Iron Fist joining together. I will be going over those issues someday. But it says brand new creative team brings you Spider-Man and the Falcon. That new creative team was Bill Mantlo and Bill Mantlo was the writer, which he's best known for his run on like ROM and Micronauts. He did a lot of the licensed stuff. I believe he also wrote the Godzilla book. Could be wrong. Bill Mantlo and Jim Mooney. Jim Mooney was the new artist taking over. So I was really disappointed because I love Chris and John. And I followed them, even 9 years old. I was like, when I saw them do a book, even if I didn't like the character that much, I would gravitate to trying to buy that book. Because I knew the quality was going to be there. I knew the writing was going to be good. I knew the art was more times than not going to be outstanding. So, but this is what got me buying X-Men Monthly right here. Now, I wasn't always able to pick up. I think it was another year after this that I started like being devoted to buying X-Men every month. It went to the top of the list along with Amazing Spider-Man and Avengers still. And Avengers were starting to go down a little bit. While the X-Men were going up, the Avengers were starting to go down. The Avengers were still good, but it almost didn't happen though. There's a story. There was an interview with Terry Austin, who had only collaborated once with Chris and John, and that was Marvel Preview. I can't remember. I think it was Marvel Preview number 10 or 11, a year previous to this, of these 2 issues, where they did a Marvel Preview book in black and white, and it's like a bigger book with the Star-Lord character. Now, not the Chris Pratt Star-Lord, the original. He's got like a blue and yellow suit. They eventually made him into the Star-Lord now, but it's amazing. And it was the first time Chris John had Terry Austin on board, and the first time they collaborated. So John loved the result of that book. John and Chris were like, it created a lot of the buzz. You think that Chris and John, their careers got the big kickstart from X-Men, and it did, but there was some buzz about Chris and John from that Star-Lord Marvel Preview. I ought to go over it someday. I've got access to it. I've read through it. It's amazing. It's unlike a lot of superhero books. The access I have to it is in the black and white. It's awesome. I mean, it's not like this kind of superhero-y stuff. It's much more sci-fi type stuff, kind of more like a Ion Flux type vibe to it, but it's in black and white. But that's the first time they had Terry Austin with them, and John Byrne really liked Terry Austin inking his stuff. And so what happened was John Byrne lived in Alberta, Canada, and Terry Austin tells this story. I read this decades ago when they did the omnibus for X-Men, and he says in that interview that the X-Men run almost didn't happen with Chris, John, and Terry because John didn't want the X-Men. John didn't think Chris Claremont wanted the X-Men. He was going to go write the X-Men no matter what, but John Byrne didn't think he was a fit for the X-Men. He thought that the sales would suffer because Dave Cockrum, the following, Dave Cockrum was a fan, he had a fan following. And he thought that his style, which is totally different style than Dave Cockrum, he didn't think his style would fit the X-Men. And he wanted to stay on Marvel Team Up. So he went to the Marvel offices from his home in Canada, Alberta, Canada, and confronted Archie Goodwin in the office and Terry Austin with him. And he recounts this story of John goes in there and starts saying, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to stay on Marvel Team Up. Chris can stay writing the X-Men. I'm going to stay on Marvel Team Up, and Terry Austin is going to join me on Marvel Team Up. And Terry Austin wanted to do Marvel Team Up because he always loved Spider-Man as a kid. He wasn't really that familiar with X-Men. So you got to remember, they weren't crawling over each other to get the X-Men book. But Archie Goodwin said, nope. The plan is that we're taking the X-Men monthly again, and you guys are the team. And we know what happened. I mean, John Byrne was wrong. The fans absolutely loved the new creative team. And Dave Cockrum was taken off the book. And I think it might have rubbed Dave Cockrum a little bit the wrong way. There's an interesting story that I'm going to save for another episode regarding Dave Cockrum's little run-in. And he would eventually resign from being on the Marvel staff, and he would still do freelance work for them. But I think it rubbed him the wrong way. But that's Jim Shooter, and there was deadline issues. And Dave Cockrum was notorious for not being able to make deadlines. So, and John Byrne could. John Byrne was not only getting better and better and better, but he was also fast. So anyway, that wraps up Marvel Team Up 69 and 70. Some of my favorite Marvel Team Up issues, and sadly, Marvel Team Up was never that good again. Now, there are a few issues that are an exception that I've talked about in the past, where they had the Nick Fury, where he teams up with Nick Fury and Black Widow and Shang-Chi, and they fight Madam Hydra and the Silver Samurai. When they take over the helicarrier. That's a great, it's like a 4-part storyline. That's a great storyline. But sadly, Marvel Team Up started to decline, and it was eventually canceled in 1985. And I was still getting it, but it wasn't near as good it was never better under Chris and John. So sadly, you can really see the drop off of the quality of the book. And it really got pretty bad in the early 80s. Marvel Team Up they couldn't keep a dedicated creative team on the book. So they were always changing. And that's kind of that's kind of a death sentence for a book, when the creative team just keeps, comic book fans like consistency. And I really do. And it's really hard on the sales. The sales take a beating when people get accustomed to a style of writing, a style of art, and then, it changes every 3 or 4 issues. And that was the case with Marvel Team Up. So anyway, that's going to wrap it up there. I went a little longer than I thought I was going to, because because I was only covering 2 issues. But yeah, it's a really fun issue. I love the way they wrote Thor. Could have had a little bit more Havok in there, but he was a main part of the story, tapping into his cosmic power. But all right, the next time, I think the next episode, I'm going to cover some early Frank Miller stuff, and it's Daredevil, but it's not Daredevil. So I am going to get out of here, and the audio version, I always upload an audio version to Spotify, even though it's kind of weird since I'm reading a comic book, reading from a comic book. And I also post the video version on YouTube. So I am out of here.